Welcome back. So, what is data? I mean, we've talked about it already, and we should have an idea of what data is. And we also know why business care about data, right? We live in a world now where data is valuable. And some of the most valuable companies are valuable because they collect data. Companies like Facebook and Google sell data to make money. They provide products for customers by using the data to improve their products. Data is the new gold. So businesses care because by understanding their data, it could be part of the product, such as creating a YouTube recommendation engine. We can ask if the company is doing okay to monitor the company's sales and statistics. And you can also use data to improve the company and ask, can we do better? What can we improve on? How can we make our apps faster? So businesses care a lot about data. But I want to take a bit of time to really understand what data engineers do by manipulating or collecting this data. So let's talk about the 4 different types of data. We learned that there's things called structured data. Now, this is data that is actually organized well for us to understand and read, because data gets collected in different ways from different sources, right? But once on a computer, there's a standard way, usually in a table or what we call a matrix, a table that makes it easy to read. Attributes are usually columns, and rows are usually instances. And sometimes we have the outputs in the rightmost column, like we saw with machine learning, where we predict an output based on the inputs. And structured data usually comes from things such as relational databases like MySQL, Postgres, and other relational databases that allow us to do something called SQL queries. That is, to perform actions on these structured data to collect information. Then there's semi-structured data. There's still structured data, but often in something like an XML, CSV, which we've seen, or JSON form. And these are just different extensions and different ways to store data in different files. For example, a really popular websites to grab data that's freely open online and find data sets, maybe even do competitions or see other people's notebooks and talk about machine learning topics. Well, Kaggle allows us to actually look at data sets that are available for us to use and play with. And in here, if I type something like XML, it'll give me all of the information or all the data, let's make this bigger, that are in XML format. So for example, if I click on blood cell images, and I take a look over here, I see that the data sources, there's some CSV files, but there's also some XML files. And if I scroll down, there's also some images as well. So different formats of data that we can use. By the way, if you click on filter here, you'll actually see some of the file types available for data. Now we know about CSVs. There's also JSON, where JSON, if we take a look, and let's go to this beer styles one. If I scroll down, we see that it's in JSON format, and JSON format, you can see, has this tree-like structure to explore data. So just a little bit different than CSV, just another way to organize data. Like I've mentioned, on Kaggle, you'll find all these types of data sets using different things. SQLite, for example, is a type of database and using SQL, so structured data. So if I do SQLite over here and search for something using relational databases, you'll see that this uses SQL. And it tells us what kind of columns it has. So lots of ways to explore Kaggle. But these 2 types of data are usually well organized and easy for us to manipulate with tools such as pandas for CSVs, and you can actually do SQL as well with pandas. The third kind is unstructured data. And Daniel has already mentioned this, right? This idea of an unstructured data are, well, they're not usually in simple formats that we can really manipulate and analyze easily. These are often things such as emails or PDFs or any sort of documents where perhaps actually understanding them is a little bit more difficult. It's unstructured. Finally, we have binary data. These are things such as audio files, image files, video files. They're in binary, that is ones and zeros that computers can understand, but for us to categorize them, that's really, really difficult. As you can see, it goes from top to bottom. From really organized, well-labeled data to something that is a little bit harder to organize, especially for machines. So why do we have to talk about these four types of data? Well, because most businesses, the bigger they get, aren't only going to have structured data. They're going to have all sorts of data, all sorts of inputs that needs to somehow all work together. So one of the jobs of a data engineer is to essentially use the fact that there's all these types of data and somehow combine them or organize them in a way that is useful to the business. Let's take a break here and explore some more in the next video.